right, good evening. We'll go ahead and kick off the regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. First up, roll call.
Chairman Brian Clark,
Present?
Vice Chairman Bobby Rossadillo,
Present.
Commissioner Jim Main,
Present.
Commissioner Chad Queen, Commissioner Kristen Sandu.
Present.
All right, first on the agenda this evening, we have the approval for the new Planning and Zoning Commission bylaws. Mr. Doug.
For the record, Doug Hansen, Planning and Zoning Director, 751 West 4th Street. The proposed amended bylaws are before you for your consideration, and I'm here for any questions you have.
Are there any questions from the commission?
I have a few questions. For Article 7.3, let's see. I think I got the wrong article. There was an article where it states that the commission has to give 72 hours notice. I'm just curious, what kind of notice form is that? Phone call, email, written?
Email is fine. Generally, what's easiest is just a reply all to the commission packet email.
And for Article 7.3, is this referring to the commission if they want to request additional information, or is this referring to the planner?
So this would be required for the commission, the planning and zoning department, or any developer or outside entity who would like information to be included in the packet.
And my final question on Article 8.4, is there any limitations in the field trips to proposed sites?
The one limit, so the two limitations are that it would need to be disclosed on the record that you did in fact go to the site, and that it could not be done in quorum. And so ultimately we'd prefer that you would do it by yourself and you wouldn't have any discussions with any fellow commissioners to avoid any ex parte problems.
And by disclosing, at what time do we have to disclose that we were at that?
It would have to be disclosed within the public hearing. I could follow up with any additional information from our legal team. They're not here tonight, but I can find that answer for you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other further questions for staff? Any other further? Okay. Sorry. Okay, with that, I'd stand for a motion. I can't make the motion.
No. All right. I'll make a motion that we approve the new Planning and Zoning Commission bylaws.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you kindly. All right, next on the agenda this evening is the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Thank you kindly. All right, first up this evening, we have a presentation from Ada County Highway District Development Services.
Thank you.
And if you'd be so kind as to state your name and address for the record.
Certainly. Mindy Wallace, Ada County Highway District Development Services. Business address is 5800 North Meeker in Boise, 83713. Sorry, we've moved a few times. So I want to say thank you for having me today, and I'm going to provide you with a brief overview of ACHD's traffic impact study process, and then what is included in our staff reports and how we fit into the city's review of development applications. So just a little bit more about me. I've been working at the Highway District since 2005, and I've been in development services that entire time. So while I'm not an engineer, I have reviewed a lot of traffic studies and worked directly with them since that time. I'm married, my husband, and I have a 16-year-old at Mountain View High School in Meridian. So, my group's tasked with the review of current planning applications, so we work directly with Doug and his team, which is a little bit different. We have a council liaison from our long-range planning group, and they attend all of your city council meetings, so 2 different planning divisions at the Highway District. So we'll have a brief overview of how we fit into your development process, talk a little bit about traffic impact studies, what's included in a staff report, and then what improvements can be required by ACHD through the development process. For development applications, ACHD is a responding agency, so each week your staff sends us transmittals of development applications, and we review those for compliance with our policies and standards. Development Services operates under Section 7200 of ACHD's policy manual, which is technical requirements for development, and then we respond to those in the form of a staff report or a staff letter. A staff report will include findings and recommendations from a traffic impact study if one is required for a specific development. They're not always required. Traffic impact study policy is 7106, and under that policy it's really a technical document, so it includes requirements and specifications to be used in the analysis, and it also defines what a traffic study is per ITE. The process for a traffic impact study generally begins when determining whether or not a TIS is required for a specific new development. And our policy typically requires a traffic study if a new development's going to generate more than 100 new PM peak hour trips in the peak hour. And then this table's included in our policy manual as kind of guidance for when we're making that determination. Both ITD and any land use agency can ask for a traffic study even if it's not required by ACHD. And we may not always require a full traffic study, but maybe a variation on a traffic study depending on the location of the site and then what's proposed. Like there are certain areas in CUNA where maybe we've gotten 4 or 5 traffic studies in the same area. Maybe we don't need to review another one. We kind of have a good feel for what's going on in the area, and we can ask for them to look at turn lanes or just a specific intersection. For the analysis portion, our policy requires a review of existing conditions, background conditions, and then total traffic conditions for all intersections and roadways that are included in the study area. And this tells us which intersections and roadway segments will operate meeting our level of service planning thresholds and which would be exceeding them, and then any mitigation. Traffic studies also include findings for with and without the new development, and then also recommend mitigation. We always try to get a consultant to provide feasible mitigation. It doesn't mean that we're always getting that, and you know, like any place else, we have constraints such as right-of-way, land ownership, those types of things. So really what we're looking at in terms of feasible mitigation would be intersection improvements, the construction of signals or roundabouts, turn lanes, converting a 2-way stop control to a 4-way stop control intersection. Turn lanes are a big one that we're able to get a lot of the time. Typically we have right of way to get that done. Roadway widening in some rare instances, pedestrian improvements, including the installation of, oh my goodness, PHBs or RRFBs for those controlled pedestrian crossings, and then some traffic calming within or even off-site. So did you guys have any questions about that at a high level?
Yeah, high-ish level.
High-ish level,
Getting
okay.
a little into the weeds.
Okay.
When you're analyzing a development, what kind of defines the study area? Do you look all the way up to I-84? Do you look out into Boise, or is it like, okay, here's a mile?
So what we typically do, or what our policy requires, is that a consultant contact Compass, who is our MPO, and they also are the keeper of our regional travel demand model. So a consultant will go to Compass and say, hey, I need you to do a model run for this development. And they tell them exactly where it is, how many units are proposed, if it's residential, commercial, mixed use, and the model assigns the trips and spits them out and distributes them. So our policy requires us to look at where the site-generated traffic of the new development touches 10% of the total traffic in the peak hour. So, you know, no model is perfect, but that's what we use as a baseline. And sometimes we look at it and we're like, well, you know, maybe that doesn't make any sense. Or historically, people travel north-south instead of east-west. So we do have some discretion when we're talking about that study area, but in general, that's how it's determined.
Okay.
Does ACHD, do they conduct a new study every time there's a new development, or do they kind of piggyback off the old study if there was an existing development already?
So it depends on how old the old study is. So typically, if it's within 2 years and it's the same amount of units or less, we don't require an update. If it's old, and the data that they used is old, so maybe a traffic study's 2 years old, but they used traffic counts that are 2 years old, we do typically require a revised study.
One question. So when you do a traffic study, you're looking at a certain subdivision probably.
Mhm.
So how do you take into account other subdivisions that may also impact that intersection that have been approved through the city?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So if a project has already been fully entitled and approved by your city council, Doug and his team are sending that information to Compass, and it gets included in the model. So the model it has this slew of traffic that's already in the background when you're doing a model request. If it hasn't quite been through that entitlement process yet, the consultant will ask us, well, what should be included in the background? And we'll give them a laundry list of developments that should be included in the background, and then they get those traffic studies or staff reports from us, and then they add that in. So it should be cumulative, we hope.
You know.
It's not perfect, but it's what we have, so.
Okay, and one other question then. So you've got subdivisions that are accumulating traffic flows through an intersection. Is there any way for ACHD to move up work at that intersection? Because some of, we see these there, it's slated in 2032 or 2000.
Absolutely. So I'm not entirely sure how that is processed here, and those requests go through our long-range planning group. So if you haven't already, I'm pretty sure that your staff has received a request for a prioritization for the next version of the 5-year work plan. So I would encourage you to work with the staff here on projects you think should be included in the next 5 years, and then those get moved up in priority. So a lot of the prioritization is driven by the information we receive from the city.
Thank you.
So the information from this, the traffic study is included in an ACHD staff report, and it includes, the findings and recommendations of the study, the feasible mitigation, and then that gets rolled into conditions of approval. I think it's really important to note that from our perspective, the traffic study is really like a technical engineering document, and just because a consultant recommends something, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to agree with it or think it's reasonable or even good mitigation. We run into that a lot where, well, it's in the traffic study. Well, that's okay. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with it. It's just meeting the technical standard. Let's see here. So staff reports, and I provided all of you with a staff report for a project that we approved in 24. Just so you have something to look at, and then we can go through it in a few minutes here. So in every ACHD staff report, the layout is going to be exactly the same, and then they're always going to include an analysis of like the existing conditions that are there today, trip generation of an anticipated development, And then level of service planning thresholds, they're always gonna include, findings and recommendations. They're gonna include our policies and standards. And then a few other things, discussion of right-of-way preservation per the master street map are in our CIP and 5-year plan. And then traffic study recommendations and site-specific conditions of approval. So a little bit in the staff report. So on the first page, this, for us, we hope that this kind of gives you a lot of information at first glance. So in the second paragraph, you can see how much traffic the new development is estimated to generate daily and then in the PM peak hour. And then going through the boxes, the orange box tells us, did this development meet all of our policies and standards, or does it require revisions? And so from this one, it required some minor revisions. Do the area roadways meet our thresholds? Yes, they do. Was a traffic study required? No. Do we have planned improvements in the 5-year plan and CIP? Yes. Are we improving pedestrian and cyclist facilities with this development? Yes. And then is there transit services available? No. So hopefully this kind of gets you some information at first blush.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If there's mitigations that, the study, requests or suggests and ACHD doesn't necessarily agree with them, would that be represented in the report that you guys provide?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you would have to read the finding, but yeah, it's documented in
Okay.
there. The first page of the report includes some of that summary information, but what I wanted to draw your attention to is the report summary. So it identifies like kind of a little table of contents of what information is in our staff report. So, you can see on page 2 of the report, we have like a list of what all of our planned improvements are. So if you need a list like, oh, what's programmed in this area, it's right there. It also includes site-specific conditions of approval. That's on the 3rd page, and then our findings are on page 6. And just like your planning staff, we have to have findings that can hold up legally. So if we're recommending waivers or it meets our policy, or maybe someone's recommending something we don't necessarily agree with, and we're documenting the reasons why. It also includes a list of all of the policies that are applicable to this development, and then our appeal guidelines. Most of the time, developers are really only interested in what do they have to do, so that's why their conditions are up front. And then most of the meat of the report is included in the findings.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is ACHD, are they able to recommend a postponing of project if there is already a road improvement going on and a new developer might actually strain that road a little bit more?
We can't necessarily recommend a deferral. We do have in part of our policy that a developer may choose to phase a development consistent with our CIP or other programmed improvements. Typically what we'll see is we'll have them do what's called a sensitivity analysis, and that will set up how many trips a new development can generate per day before like a roadway or an intersection exceeds a certain level of service and it would need to be improved. So if it coincides with us doing an improvement, we usually say, oh, we have this programmed, and you can go ahead and proceed because ACHD is going to do the improvement. Or we'll say, this says that your intersection's going to fail when you get 300 single-family building lots. So we want you to turn in an updated analysis at that point. And if it's still going to fail at that point, then developer, you need to make the improvement to move forward.
What if it's an active improvement if you guys are already,
If we're already building it,
Yeah, if you
they would go ahead and move forward.
okay, at the same time?
So it just depends. Sometimes they may want to if that's the way they're getting their utilities extended, because that way they don't have to cut a brand new road.
Gotcha. And do you guys conduct a study based on that moment? Like, because there'll probably be an increase in cut-through neighborhoods.
We do look at cut-through analysis, and there, we're kind of talking about two different things. So if we have a project going on, there's temporary traffic control, and we do have a detour route that goes through a neighborhood. We don't have a choice all the time, and we may have temporary traffic calming and some other items in the neighborhood until the project's completed. But we do look for cut-through traffic, and depending on the type and size of development and existing stub streets, we may say, hey, you need to do an analysis of how many trips will go through the existing neighborhood and what traffic calming you may need to make in an adjacent neighborhood.
I have a question, and I don't know if it's appropriate to ask now or towards the end, so you can tell me if you'd like to defer this question. Could we get a kind of basic definition of level of service and what the different levels of service translate to in, I mean, how is it measured? Is it just number of vehicles through an intersection at a
Yeah.
given time, or is it time spent at the intersection?
It's called a volume to capacity ratio, and I actually wrote down a definition of it because I can never remember this. So roadway level of service, it's a lot easier. We have these thresholds in our policy manual, and they're by roadway classification, and it's by how many lanes, and then it's per direction in the peak hour. So the little table in the report before you, let's see here. I feel like I'm missing a page here. I am, I hope you're not, but maybe
Well,
you
we
are.
do seem to be missing every even numbered page in this document.
OMG,
I'm sorry
okay,
to say.
I'm so sorry, I wish I noticed that sooner.
I think it was meant to be double-sided.
It said it was printing single-sided, okay. So typically there is like a table in the staff report, I'll send it over and Doug can forward it on to you. And it has like the roadway name, the classification, and then the level of service. And then below there's like an asterisk and it'll say the level of service is 540 for a 2-lane collector. So we have a table, I'll send it over to Doug and he can get it to you. It's in our traffic study section of the policy manual. But volume to capacity ratio, okay, now this is a very engineering. VC ratio, a traffic engineering measure that compares the actual or projected traffic volume at an intersection to its capacity. It indicates the level of congestion with a ratio number. This ratio is used to define problem areas, plan for future needs, and determine planning level of service thresholds. So the volume is the number of vehicles passing through a point in any given time and often includes a 15-minute peak interval, which is what we use. And the capacity is the maximum rate at which vehicles can pass through the same point under specific conditions. So our volume to capacity ratio is 0.1. Anything over 0.1 per lane group is considered failing or exceeds our level of service thresholds. ITD's is 0.90, so theirs is a little bit less than ours.
Okay. Yeah, I think what I'm hoping for at some point is some kind of cheat sheet where I can say, okay, well, if they're saying I've got, I keep seeing level of service E or whatever.
E is okay.
Right. So I guess the question becomes, if I see that on the documentation, am I condemning, I hate to use this word, but condemning the locals to a 10-minute wait, a 3-minute wait, or a 2-minute wait
Okay,
at a
so-
given light?
So
You know,
you're talking about delay. That's a little bit, we don't report delay.
Because, I mean, during peak hours, I mean, that's usually our concern
Yeah.
at the commission, and of course, that's a big concern for the public is, okay, well, you have added trips per day. I'm already sitting at this light or at this intersection for 5 minutes
Two
to make it
cycles.
onto Meridian Road.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what does that look like in this build-out scenario?
Okay.
So that's I'm kind of hoping for some level of cheat sheet that we can not necessarily rely on, but at least have a gauge.
Okay, I think that's
For-
helpful. Because we don't know what you need unless somebody can tell us, so.
And that's really what it comes down to, because I mean, especially, in front of the public, they're not going to go
Yeah.
digging through a TIA necessarily. And really that's going to help us communicate more effectively with the public.
What we've done in some other communities is we've done kind of, I don't want to call it like a level, like a delay, but it's how much congestion is your community willing to live with? And we've provided some analysis of that type for some really large developments in Boise, for example, Murillo Farms development. We did that, and it was pretty significant. We also went through an exercise for a project that was in pre-application in Meridian, and it showed that it would take 32 minutes to go less than a half mile if this project were to move forward to get from Central Drive to the eastbound on-ramp at Meridian Road. So we do have
Wow.
some of those tools, but I would say we haven't necessarily had to use them for projects in CUNA, but it's certainly something that we can do if your staff is asking or if you're interested.
Yeah, I think, and that's, we'll have to discuss with staff and see what that would look like. Yeah, I think having some kind of an idea of what the actual impact is, because I'm sure you've experienced it, we've all experienced it. It's well, if it takes me 10 minutes to get out of my neighborhood, I'm probably not going to be in the best mood driving north on Meridian Road. So, a large part of this whole thing is the,
Yes, and one of the key concerns of everybody at our public hearings is traffic.
yeah.
So it comes up every
Yeah.
meeting for every public hearing,
I understand that, yeah.
right? And alls we can do is say, well, ACHD says it's okay.
Kind of piggyback off that, after some developments have gone in, there's been studies done. Does ACHD ever go back to study the actual traffic and how often? And if so, do you see, are the studies fairly accurate? Are there ever instances where maybe they missed the mark?
So are you talking about for traffic study for new development?
Well, yeah, looking back, like I guess doing like a real world study once some developments have actually been completed and the traffic is in, they're using the roadways.
Verification of the model.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do that through development. If we have a traffic impact study or a really large development, we'll set thresholds for when they have to submit revisions or updates to their traffic study. And what that allows them to do is to collect actual data from their development and report it. So then we can kind of compare the original assumptions to what's happening on the ground and make that comparison, make adjustments as needed. Something that we do, our traffic safety group does, is they have these guys that go out and they collect traffic counts all over the county. If you want a traffic count, you make the request, and you might have to wait a little bit because there's only 2 of them, and they can only do so much. But we generally try to collect updated traffic counts every 2 years for most collector and arterials in the county. Through development, if there's not a traffic study and it's in a sensitive area, we can request that it be counted, and oftentimes we'll say, well, we're going to count it now, and then after the development goes in, we'll have it counted again, and just to see, verify the assumptions. And sometimes neighbors or everyone's going to drive down my street. Well, they have some other options, so let's just try this approach and see what actually happens. So we're constantly counting and checking, and the same with intersections. So if we have some intersections that maybe they're always stopped, but it's an area where we've had a large increase in traffic, or there's a lot of queuing, like a really long time to go through the stop signs, or high accidents, we go out and evaluate those for updating those to signals. And so maybe we can't fit a widened signal in the interim, but maybe it gets what we consider interim signal, which is like a 3x3. So it'd be have a dedicated left turn lane, a through right, and a receiving lane on each approach.
Thank you.
Sorry, we kind of derailed you there. Apologize.
That's okay. Oh, I did want to talk about what we can require through development, because I think this gets a little confused sometimes between the 2 planning divisions, what long-range planning is doing, and then what we can do through development. So we get fully constructed local street network and your collector street network. So it's all the pavement, the bike facilities, the ped facilities, the curb and gutter, and the storm drain. We can get traffic calming and turn lanes. And if it goes back to that traffic study, if there's any warranted improvements, sometimes it's roadway widening. It could be signalization of an intersection, those types of things. We can do all those things through development. For arterial roadways, we're primarily getting right-of-way preservation and pedestrian facilities, because most of those are in our capital improvements plan. And under that ordinance, we don't, because the highway district project is putting in the curb and gutter and the storm drain, we can't require those through development. So we're getting right-of-way consistent with the CIP and the master street map, pavement widening, and then bike and pedestrian facilities, and again, anything that's required with a traffic impact study that can be feasibly constructed.
So, for instance, with something like Paul Bunyan here at the intersection of
Deer
Deer
Flat.
Flat and Meridian,
Mhm.
so that tract is, or that development has dedicated the right-of-way as part of their mapping process. They've built out the sidewalks, they've built out their on-site
Mhm.
drainage, all that kind of fun stuff. But they won't be required to actually construct any curb and gutter or storm drain facilities on Meridian Road itself, even if it's warranted, if it's part of the CIP.
So Meridian Road is under the jurisdiction of the Idaho
Oh, that's
Transportation
ITD.
Department.
Okay, so Deer Flat
So,
then.
Deer Flat, they actually did, because that intersection was programmed in our capital improvements plan and the roadway was. We did a developer cooperative with them and they
Okay.
built out their side of the road completely and then we reimbursed them for that.
Okay,
So that's like a tool that we have through development services and it's our way of getting some capital projects built ahead of time.
and so in that case, it was not, so it's not a solid, okay, well, if it's in the CIP, you can't build it. It's, if it's in the CIP, we won't require you to build it.
Right, but there's also certain things that we can't have for safety. So if someone comes in and says, oh, we're gonna widen 200 feet of, well, not even 200, sometimes it's like 50 feet of frontage to 5 lanes. It's like, no, no, we cannot do that. That's not safe. So there's a lot of variety, so.
Fair. Okay.
And then I'll stand for any questions if you have
Or
any more.
any more questions? Are there any further questions? All right, thank you so much, Mindy.
Yeah,
Really
you're
appreciate
welcome.
it. This is very informative, and, yeah, we'll have to discuss the level of service thing. And so, like I said, if there's any form of cheat sheet that we
Mhm.
could come up with, and just give us an idea, of, when I see level of E at a collector and an arterial, what does that mean?
Sure.
Time. What does that
Time-wise.
mean in time? So, I don't know if that's feasible, if that's reasonable, but specifically, okay, during this 15-minute period between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8:30 a.m., these are the times that
Mhm.
you should be expecting to wait at this level of service, is kind of what I'm,
What you're after.
yeah.
Okay, we do have all the signal timing information, so we could report like how long it takes on, most signals aren't on split phase, they should be on 2-phase, so like each approach should take typically 120 seconds, but they're all different, so.
So I have a really awful request, or a question. Can this same level of analysis be looked at on an unsignalized intersection? Because we have several unsignalized along Meridian Road.
That's-
And more importantly, if I have a development that's coming, that's proposing an unsignalized left.
So those are typically at the mid-mile?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really have a good way to do that
Okay.
with it, unless we're sending somebody out just to observe.
Fair enough. Yeah. But yeah, those are the types of questions that we
Okay.
do field on a normal basis with the public, and I think that is obviously, that's where the rubber meets the road as
Mhm.
far as the public is concerned.
It is. And anything along Meridian Road is a little bit challenging for coordination with Idaho Transportation Department.
Yeah.
Their standards are just a little bit different than ours.
And so you said that they were at a 0.9 versus
A 1.
a 1. Okay. So I guess I'm kind of curious to see how that translates. So their standard is looser or more
More restrictive than ours.
restrictive?
Yeah.
Okay.
And ours is per lane group, so per approach at an intersection is what we're looking at. So each individual approach has a number, and then the overall intersection has a number.
Okay, so I mean, when you say each lane group, so you're saying the left turn, if there are 2 left turns, that would be considered one group?
They each have their own number. They
Okay.
each have one. So like if there's a dedicated right turn lane, that would have its own. A through lane would have its own. A left would have its own. The receiving lane would have its own. They all have their own individual numbers. And they're typically in the appendix of a traffic study. There's all these, they look like Excel spreadsheets, but Synchro spits them out and it has everything per lane group and all the data's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and that'll bring us to our public hearings this evening. We have two public hearings on the docket. The first one this evening is case number 25-03-S and 25-28-DR for the Lerida subdivision. Marina?
Staff requests that this case be tabled to a date certain of February 10th due to a noticing error.
Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table case number 25-03-S and 25-28-DR to a date certain of February 10th, 2025. I'm sorry, 2026.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Next up this evening, we have case number 25-05 SUP for Caveman Trailer. Also Marina.
Staff requests that this case also be tabled to a date certain of February 10th, 2026, also due to a noticing error.
And I'll stand for motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to table case number 25-05-SUP to a date certain of February 10th, 2026.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's the end of our public hearings for the evening, which will bring us to our business items. First on our business items this evening is case number 25-31-DR for Blossom Meadows subdivision. Troy?
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Troy B. Hoonan, Senior Planner, Development Services Department. So this might look familiar to a couple of you, to some of you. So this was actually a project that was approved by the by the council earlier or later in the year of 2025. It actually came before the commission in May of 2025, and the design review for the landscaping for the open spaces and the common lots and the landscape buffers was approved at that time. The developer has then since found a builder who is interested in it, and they wanted to make some modifications to it. We talked about it as staff, and we felt that we needed to find out if ACHD was okay with the proposed changes. That letter of acceptance is actually in the packet. I believe it's page 56 or 7. But we also felt that it was important to bring it back to the body that approved the design review, since there were a couple of changes that were required by the commission. Technically speaking, if you look at page 59 of your packet, you will see the original, and there's the center upper piece where things were changed in order to get the approval of the design review. And if you look on page 60, that is what is proposed. So what the builder's proposing is to remove one of the roads, make another east-west road, and to change the open space. This does nothing to the preliminary plat numbers except increase the open space. The lot count remains the same. It does remove at least some street, and it increases the open space. Adam Capel with Tresidio Homes is here if you have any specific questions. Adam did make staff aware of a condition, I believe it was number 29 or 28. Yeah, just, it was reflecting pedestrian pathways through certain lots and blocks. And he can identify what they're going to propose to you. With that, I'll sit for any questions you have.
Any questions for staff?
No.
Yeah, Adam, if you wouldn't mind. If you wouldn't mind taking us through that condition. And if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record.
Happy to. Name is Adam Capel with Tresidio Homes. Address is 2973 North Eagle Road, Suite 110, Meridian, Idaho. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Troy. Really, I'm just here to answer any questions. Troy did a great job outlining that. As he mentioned, with the site plan, we're increasing the overall open space. We've also enhanced the amenity offering from a single tot lot to a tot lot and multiple sport courts. And we're also accelerating the amenity package, so we've now moved it to phase 1 rather than phase 3. The condition in question is number 28. Condition 28 references a pedestrian pathway through block 10, but there's no block 10 any longer in this, so we would just ask that that be corrected to remove reference to block 10. So greatly appreciate staff and ACHD's support on these changes, and happy to answer any questions you have.
So any questions up front? Okay. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything that we need to question necessarily, or, or
I think it
I
looks
don't have
better.
any specific questions, I think. Kristen?
No question.
Thank you, Adam, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So just as a note, as a design review, this is not a public hearing.
Mhm.
Excuse
So
me,
this
Brian.
brings- Yes,
Sorry for the interruption.
no
For the
worries.
record, Troy Buchanan. So if the commission is okay with it, then we would just remove that, remove that condition because I'm just drawing a blank.
Well, the condition is no longer applicable, so
Yes.
we would remove the unapplicable
Yes.
condition.
Thank
And
you.
do we have a specific number for that? Because that would be as part of the
Number 28.
number 28.
Yeah.
So we'll need to make that in the recommendation.
Correct.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, in the approval.
In the approval.
So condition 28. All right. So yeah, now, as stated, this is design review, so this is just an opportunity for us to, so we are the approving body on design reviews. And so yeah, just up front, looking at this, any commentary, thought process?
No, I was involved with the original approval on the design review, and there were a couple issues, but we worked through that. And looking at it now, I actually think the layout with the streets is better than it was, and the improved green space is better too. So I'm good with what they've brought back.
I agree. I think it'll make the overall neighborhood a much nicer place for residents.
Looks better to me.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, if there are no other questions, I'd stand for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve 25-31-DR with conditions as outlined in the staff report, as well as removing condition number 28, remove the reference to lot number 10.
I'll second.
Just a quick correction, it's reference to block 10.
I'm sorry. Okay, reference to block 10.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. Okay. Yeah. All right, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you kindly. Next up, another design review for case number 24-23-DR from Madrone Village subdivision.
Once again, Troy Buchanan, Development Services Department, Senior Planner. So this is going to look familiar to 3 of you as well. So the Madrone Village preliminary plat was was actually denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission in June or July of 2025. It then went to council, and council then made the decision to approve the preliminary plat and the annexation request. However, the commission did not act on the design review component of that application, because if the annexation is recommended for denial, then there's no reason to act on anything else. So we're here just as a house cleaning item, basically to run this back through for design review, and noting that also the overall development was actually approved by City Council in 2025. I'll be here for any questions that you might have. I know that Stephanie Hopkins with KM Engineering, representing the applicant, is also here if you have any questions.
All right, any questions for staff?
I did have some questions earlier, and I talked to Troy about them. And the questions I had were basically the fire station that's being built now, that's part of the plat, and the commercial, and where access is gonna be taken to get to those spaces. And I think in talking to Troy, he straightened me out on that. So my only question was access to the commercial and the fire station, and from what I understand, the fire station will access off of Kena Road, and the commercial will be an internal access. So it shouldn't affect traffic in any way.
Okay. All right, now, as I believe, just for our information, if I recall correctly, this is gonna be so this particular school was currently listed as a charter?
Yeah, that's correct. For the record, Troy Behunin. Just so that everyone remembers, the charter school is gonna actually have to come back through for its own design review.
Mhm.
It's gonna have to have its own traffic impact study.
Okay, now will that also impact the park lot? Cause I mean, the park lot's kinda part and parcel with the school.
That would be a good question for Stephanie to ask. I don't know what the phasing of that is, but,
Okay. Okay.
but because it's gonna be one of those shared, assets, part owned by the city, part owned by the charter school, a shared maintenance responsibility, I think that she might be able to answer that question better than I could because of the phasing.
All right, so we'll pick on you in a moment, Stephanie, but are there any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I have one more question, Troy. So looking at the open space percentage, I know it said it was at 14.8% or roughly around there. If we're doing design approval or design review for the entire development, but then they come back for the school site, how much, are there gonna be ways to ensure that that open space, continues to stay at the 14.8? Will that be included?
That's a great question, for the record, Troy Behunin. The preliminary plat that was approved the recommended approval by this body and approved by the council, that's gonna be the ruling document. So, they stated what the open space requirement, or what the open space proposal was gonna be. That's where it was proposed, that's where it's gotta stay.
Okay, so their building will have to stay within certain,
It has to stay exactly as the preliminary plat showed.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, good. Thank you. Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Stephanie Hopkins with KM Engineering. Our address is 5725 North Discovery Way in Boise. We are including the park and improvements around the school in the first phase of development. So those are part of our construction plans that are actually currently under review. So those will be improved with the first phase. And then I don't know if there are any other questions that were directed at me. But we are really excited about this project. Appreciate your consideration on the design review. I think it'll have a lot of amenities that'll really benefit this part of CUNA. So, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
All right. No, honestly, in this area, I do like this project. I like the proposed, I know it's kind of a interesting thought process with the shared school site, but I think it's, and I know that there are some questions to be answered on the shared usage, but overall, I kind of like the concept. I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out.
I have a question for staff. You guys mentioned that it was denied by P&Z initially. Can I ask why? What was the reason?
For the record, Troy Buchanan, that's a good question. Good question, Kristen. It was a recommendation for denial. I would refer you back to either the meeting minutes or perhaps you can ask some of the members here, but the preliminary plat's been decided, it's been approved. It's not really up for discussion.
I was just curious.
I can tell you after the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the design goes, I mean, meets all, from what I can tell. I don't see anything that stands out as not meeting the city codes or.
Yeah.
So from a design standpoint, looks solid.
Any other questions or commentary? Considerations? Okay.
No.
I'd stand for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve 24-23-DR with conditions as outlined in the staff report.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you kindly. All right, and that's the end of our business items of the evening. Are there any additional updates and reports from staff?
For the record, Doug Hanson, Planning and Zoning Director. Since it was alluded to earlier in the meeting, the structure of the staff reports you are going to begin seeing will change slightly. We are going to elaborate a little bit more on transportation. You might not see exactly what you asked for from Mindy right away about the delays and things like that, but we're going to elaborate on the level of service planning thresholds and what those letters mean in the definitions of their actual policy manual.
Okay.
So hopefully that simplifies some things.
Appreciate that. All right, if nothing else,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I got a question for you.